In the turbulent world of Beyond the Gates, the moment Jacob locked cold steel handcuffs around Randy's wrists was not merely an arrest. It was a violent collision between trust and betrayal, between justice and the personal loyalties he had tried to ignore for months. Jacob had not acted impulsively. He had tracked Plasma Ring in silence, assembling fragments of evidence like shards of glass that threatened to cut him at any moment. Suspicious financial transfers, secret meetings in dimly lit parking garages, coded names buried in internal files, all of it led back to Randy. But what fueled Jacob's anger was not just the crime. It was the realization that Randy had once been someone he trusted, someone who had stood beside him during the most difficult operations, someone he had defended when whispers of doubt circulated. The betrayal had not been loud or dramatic. It had been subtle, patient, corrosive. When Jacob first uncovered a questionable transfer routed through an intermediary account tied to Randy, he searched desperately for an alternative explanation. He convinced himself it was coincidence, that his colleague could not possibly be a cog in a machine built on manipulation and corruption. Yet the deeper he dug, the clearer the pattern became, and what enraged him most was that he had ignored the signs. He had wanted to believe in Randy. That failure of judgment burned hotter than any deception. Randy was no fool. He understood the cost of exposure. Plasma Ring was not a simple criminal circle. It was a structure engineered from greed and mutual vulnerability. Each member held secrets over the others, forming a web where betrayal meant annihilation. Randy had not joined merely for money. He had felt overlooked, sidelined from decisions that shaped power and influence. Plasma Ring offered him recognition, leverage, the intoxicating illusion of control over forces he once only observed from the margins. But power always came tethered to fear. When Jacob began asking questions, Randy sensed the tightening noose. He erased traces, redirected suspicion toward another member, and activated a contingency plan Plasma Ring had prepared for precisely this scenario. That plan was not only about concealment, it was about sacrifice. Anyone exposed would be reshaped into the sole architect of the conspiracy, absorbing the blame to shield the core. The moment Jacob signed the arrest warrant was the moment he accepted the cost. He knew the fallout would extend far beyond Randy. Some of Jacob's own associates had financial ties to investment channels manipulated by Plasma Ring. Arresting Randy meant unraveling threads that led to powerful names. He risked losing his position, his credibility, even his safety. His anger did not explode outward. It settled inside him, dense and razor-sharp. He was furious at being manipulated, furious at a system where justice required sacrifice. Yet beneath that anger lingered something more dangerous, a part of him that still hoped Randy was innocent. That internal contradiction kept him awake at night, staring at files with trembling hands, questioning whether he was pursuing truth or destroying the remnants of a friendship that once mattered. When Randy was escorted away, the composure he once projected cracked. The fear in his eyes was not solely about prison. It was about Plasma Ring. He knew too much, and in a structure like theirs, knowledge was liability. He was trapped between two forces, the tightening grip of law enforcement and the ruthless organization that would erase him to survive. Inside his holding cell, Randy began to understand he had always been expendable. The promises of protection, the assurances whispered in private meetings, they dissolved into silence when he attempted to activate an emergency contact within the organization. That silence was more brutal than any accusation. Jacob, meanwhile, faced mounting pressure. Closed-door meetings emphasized community stability and financial implications. The language was diplomatic, but the meaning was unmistakable. Plasma Ring's influence ran deep. Advisors suggested discretion, subtlety, reconsideration. Jacob recognized the undertone. Proceed carefully, or risk your career. His anger hardened into resolve. He widened the investigation, tracing layered transactions and cross-referencing shell companies. Each discovery sliced deeper into the polished facade the community projected, yet the closer he came to the center, the more isolated he felt. Colleagues avoided eye contact. Requests for documentation stalled without explanation. The system he served seemed unwilling to fully stand behind him. Desperation began reshaping Randy's thinking. Survival required leverage. Silence would guarantee abandonment. He contemplated releasing encrypted data capable of destabilizing Plasma Ring's foundation. Such a move would create chaos enough to force negotiation, perhaps even protection, but it would also seal his identity as a traitor. And traitors rarely survive. Within Plasma Ring, paranoia spread. Trust deteriorated into suspicion. Meetings grew tense. Each member wondered who might be next. The unity once built on shared ambition fractured under the instinct to survive. Some quietly moved assets offshore. Others erased digital footprints. Strategies emerged to portray Randy as the mastermind, isolating him as the singular villain. The tension escalated when a potential witness disappeared before testifying. Jacob recognized that this was no longer a routine investigation. It was a war against a network prepared to manipulate, intimidate, and eliminate threats. He faced a brutal decision: push forward publicly and risk collateral damage, or retreat to protect those around him. His anger now intertwined with fear and responsibility. A single miscalculation could endanger innocent lives. Yet retreat would mean allowing Plasma Ring to persist, to continue breeding more Randys. More individuals seduced by ambition and discarded when convenient. Behind steel bars, Randy confronted his own reckoning. He could remain silent, clinging to the faint hope of organizational intervention. Or he could dismantle the structure from within, fully embracing betrayal. Speaking out would not merely implicate criminals, it would topple reputations, fracture powerful families, and plunge the community into upheaval. The confrontation between Jacob and Randy was no longer simply law versus suspect. It was the clash of two men who once believed in the same moral framework and now stood at opposite ends of a battlefield shaped by ambition and fear. Both were cornered by their own choices. Anger, betrayal, and dread coiled together into a volatile tension threatening to explode. As the final layers of evidence surfaced and names more influential than Randy's emerged, the point of no return was crossed. Jacob understood he had ignited something far greater than an arrest. Randy understood that silence could no longer protect him. Plasma Ring understood that its carefully engineered structure was fracturing from within. All that remained was a final decision, one that would determine who survived, who was crushed. and whether justice could endure beneath the crushing weight of power and ambition.